Well, we are now live on Facebook. Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, I'm great.
Ryan,
thank you.
Yeah, exactly. We've got so Ryan obviously joining us again for another edition of essentially drinking a bit of coffee and chatting business, especially local business. It's good to have you back, Ryan.
Yeah, glad to be back again. It's one of the things I look forward to every week. And, the last few weeks I've got so much out of it personally. And hoping everyone out there, we've had so many people tuning in, such great feedback as well. So hopefully everyone's getting a little bit of value out of it as well. And it's been something to look forward to for me at the end of each week.
Yeah, exactly. I guess you've picked on a nice point there, that this the whole idea around this, we kind of just kicked off a bit organically, but essentially it was a way just for me and Ryan to kind of learn and speak and meet with other business owners around both in Taranaki and it's kind of turned into in New Zealand as well. And we've done this now for about 5 or 6 weeks. We've spoken with some really interesting businesses and business owners. But today we kind of wanted to take a different turn and speak with someone who's involved a lot in the community. So we invited Glen Bennett to come and join us today. Glen, how are you?
Kia ora. I'm well, thanks, Jordan. Thanks for having me. And it's just interesting times that we are living in, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. And like I say, traditionally me and Ryan, we've kind of spoken with business owners about how they're kind of adapting. But one of the main things that we wanted to do when jumping on these broadcasts was kind of the opportunity to learn a bit about what is actually going on in the community and the feelings that's going on around the community, especially for myself and marketing and working with businesses who are also marketing their services. It's really important to actually know who you're talking to and what kind of struggles and challenges they're currently facing at the moment. So that's why we thought it would be interesting to have you on, just to give a different perspective on what people are kind of facing.
Yeah, no, cheers for the opportunity. And I guess, I've been around Taranaki for 20 years. 20 years actually coming up in July. So I moved here from Wellington almost 20 years ago. And the whole time been involved in the community sector here. And a lot of initiatives based in Marfell around Taranaki, around youth initiatives. And so it's been really interesting to sort of be in my bubble, in my lockdown. And to I guess for me, I've always been someone who's been engaged and has been active and has been a real troubleshooter, and being able to sort of deal with community issues and deal with, things that are going on. So it's been quite interesting and quite hard to do that from a distance, and to, I guess being in your bubble where you can't actually go and face-to-face deal with what's going on. I guess the interesting thing, because you watch the news, you're on social media and all that sort of stuff, and is very much the talk is about business, and it's obviously so important. Mm-hmm. But I think it probably is there is sort of a silent issue going on underneath all of that, which we probably aren't hearing about. So I really appreciate, I guess, a chance to explore some of that with you today.
Yeah, exactly. I guess, and look, it's been a different week. We've entered level 3. Because how's that changed for you, Ryan?
Yeah, it's made a bit of a difference in the real estate industry, of course, and that all of a sudden people are able to go back into property and that type of thing. There's a lot of parameters around it, but yeah, it's meant. I don't know. I've just felt a general feel. I've been out and about each day. I'm still trying to minimise that as much as I possibly can, but there is a lot of more people around. There seems to be a little bit of a buzz in the air, and there seems to just be a little bit of a feeling of normality returning, even though it's not quite as it usually was. It's still business as unusual. But yeah, so that's definitely some changes for me this week, and it's been quite busy.
And definitely a bit of a buzz around, for some reason, McDonald's and KFC. It's just random. We were driving in town yesterday, and KFC, even in New Plymouth, has got a lineup. They've got traffic management plans, for goodness sake. I don't quite get it.
3 in the country. It was the top 3 in the country for sales on Tuesday morning.
That's incredible.
I just think as a species, we've become these amazing creative things, and then we get a lockdown first. We go to McDonald's, and I've noticed though. Yesterday, I did have to go to the supermarket, and the biggest queue was for KFC. Go figure.
Yeah. Crazy, crazy. You could just go across the road to New World, but no, we'll head across to KFC instead. No, so like you say, Ryan.
I was going to say, my other thing was going to be, I've been watching social media through the lockdown, and people have been creating these amazing food dishes and their own versions of KFC and their own versions of the Big Mac. And I'm just thinking, that's made with whole real food, and suddenly everyone's back into just the other stuff anyway.
Yeah, definitely. It has been, everyone kind of turned into that home baker for a while, where you couldn't buy flour at any supermarkets. And that's just pivoted right away to probably a whole heap of flour sitting on the supermarket shelves now and no KFC. It's just kind of that pivot, I guess. I don't know. But no, it has been an interesting week. And actually, going back to your point, Ryan, around there does seem to be a different feel around the place at the moment. Obviously, there's still quite a bit of anxiety, because I guess one of the things that I'm trying to be really mindful about and conscious about is sure there are quite a few businesses that have reopened this week and able to go back to trading. And obviously, if you drive around town, it's looking busy. There's lots of stuff going on, but there's still a big lot of businesses, and there's still a lot of organisations that are not running at their current capacity. They're not able to trade. There's still a lot of services that are still unable to even work, like even if you talk about council services and stuff like that. And then a lot of like the face-to-face services obviously still not trading to the full capacity. So even though everything still is starting to feel a bit nicer, there's still some people out there that are obviously still a bit anxious about the next few weeks.
Totally agree.
And I guess that's just going to be interesting for us to kind of see how that all changes over the as we transition into level 2. Like, Glenn, from your perspective, from looking at a community side of things, how do you think that, well, even the lockdown and then even this change into level 3, how do you think that's actually kind of had an impact on the community?
I think because I've heard some narrative on social media and newspapers and that kind of thing around beneficiaries, and why do we have to worry, because they're still getting paid and they're still, they're getting their housing subsidies, and so why there's been a big need you would have seen for food parcels and for a lot of support for but it's been a couple of things. I think one with beneficiaries, and you're probably both experiencing the same. You have families at home. And for families, for you to be at home all day, every day, for almost 5 weeks, the food bill, it changes, eh? Like that, going to the fridge, going to the pantry, and having your kids sort of, I'm bored now, what do I do? Well, let's eat some food. All that, like really simple things like that have become a real issue. Also in terms of, for some families who often would have accessed the meal program in schools, whether it be breakfast in schools or the fruit in schools program, and that's obviously been put on hold at the moment. So that's been a big issue. And then also for those lower income workers who get by, who manage to pay the rent or the mortgage, manage to pay their power bill and their phones, but they're on 80%. They've been put on 80% now. So what was a fine line in terms of any surplus cash they had is now a bigger gap for them. So in terms of the services here in Taranaki and around New Zealand, in terms of food banks and access to those services, they've actually skyrocketed.
Yeah, exactly. Mel's saying here the grocery bill just doubled, and it's true. And I know that there was a bit of commentary around the fact that prices may not, obviously, are not as cheap in the supermarket anyway, because it seems as though there's just not as many, specials in the supermarket. So it is making it much more difficult to kind of afford some of those things. So like you say, and maybe like you say, Glenn, as well, it's the fact we are so close to our pantries and fridges at the moment. It's just like you're sitting at the desk and you're thinking, okay, I could get into this task, but I know that the wife's just done a bit of baking, so I might just walk down there and go have another coffee.
It's just so when you work from home, it becomes irresistible and just like, I need a break. Whereas if you're working in a workplace or if you're driving around like Ryan does, doing all his bits and pieces, you haven't got time to stop and open the fridge door or whatever. But when you're at home, the other big thing, I guess, has been around families who often school is a safe place for tamariki and young people, or the fact that families can actually separate and have some space apart. Because for some people in their bubbles, it wasn't a healthy bubble to be in. I'm sure for a lot of us, our bubbles have been great. We've really enjoyed having family time and having more time with your kids and that sort of thing. But for some families, the challenge of the dynamics of the family makeup is not necessarily healthy. So the separation of going to work, going to school, going to other activities, with those all shut down, I know that's been a real challenge in terms of family harm, and I guess the mental health stuff that goes with that as well.
And that's kind of it's going to have a little bit of an impact even moving forward. Yeah, like that's something that's not going to go away just overnight.
No, exactly. And I'm glad that the government, they've thrown a heap of money into supporting in terms of mental health services and online services and tech services and phone services. But the other thing is we are humans, and I think that face-to-face connection is sometimes, like, doing this is great. I really enjoy having this conversation, but it's quite different to me sitting down with the two of you having a coffee together and having a conversation, and that social and that kind of the soul and the heart kind of stuff that happens with that. So it is a challenge, and I've talked to some of the social services and in terms of some in mental health, and they have real concerns. What really got me actually talking to someone last week was around the elderly. And I know obviously they've been in lockdown like everybody else, but in terms of their real concern, which is never talked about, around the mental health of our elderly in New Zealand. I mean, often they're alone, and often the older generation is, I don't want to bother anyone. I don't want to be a burden on society. And talking around the mental health and the I guess what can come after that is a real issue that isn't really being addressed that well. And it isn't in the media or being addressed in that way.
Yeah,
it's so true. Yeah. It's really interesting, and just getting that different perspective. Like you say, everyone's in that different boat, and everyone's got the different circumstances, and everyone's trying to adjust and adapt and kind of change the way they're kind of living. Like Ryan, you've obviously worked remotely for a while, but obviously it's a change when the whole family comes into the home too, though. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have touched on that a little bit before as well, and it's going to be it's an ongoing thing, but it is something I feel like I've adapted to because I've had to really, and I think just setting up. I really liked what Glenn said before, because I think didn't really like it, but I agreed with it, and the fact that we don't get that time apart from each other like we were getting in a normal time. And I think for every family, I feel like we've got a really strong family unit here. But this week, my wife certainly had a few chats together saying, I do not know how much more of this we can do, because we're not in space and we're having to fit so much of both of our work. Amber and I both work from home and have done for quite a length of time, into such small periods of time, often when the baby's asleep or when the kids are on their other babysitter, iPad. That's when what we're doing now is trying to get as much done, and we just had to adapt, really.
So how do you manage that currently?
How do I manage the having to adapt, or?
No, like having the whole family at home and stuff like that. Are you having to change your working? So obviously, you can't sit down and just do a solid 8 hours at the computer, yeah?
No, no, definitely not. And it's just taking bite-sized things, actually, like Amber just purchased for the house something called a rocket board, which we've got by a standing desk, and essentially it's like, right, I'm going to jump on this, get a bit of movement going, punch out a couple of emails, take a phone call, and then that's it. The kids need me again, and we're just going in and working it that way, really. Yeah, and can I come back to a point you were just saying before too, Glenn, with the elderly people, because that's been something that, I've felt as a bit of a concern as well, and a couple of my clients have currently we're about to move out of their house into a retirement home as lockdown hit, and it has been really, really, really stressful for them. And it's been interesting talking to them that some of their biggest difficulties have been that the way they've done business and done things for years, such as going to the TSB bank on a Tuesday and going to the post shop once a month to pay their bills, all of a sudden that type of thing's been turned up on its head. And yes, it is a bit of a concern. I don't know if that support's there. And with the house at the moment, they've got papers that they have to sign before they move out, but have never owned a computer or a cell phone or anything remotely the same, and are feeling really stressed about, how do we sign this? What do we do here? And we've adapted well for people that are technologically able, but I think there is quite a large portion of society that is struggling a bit at the moment with not getting access to a lot of the things that is their normal life, and often sitting back and thinking, I don't want to bother anyone though, so I'm just going to sit quietly and hope it all works. Yeah, so some good points there.
And I think that I think it was Grey Power in Taranaki, or it was New Plymouth or Taranaki, I think, was it 35 to 40% of their members don't have access to the internet. And so I know it's been a real concern. I had a phone call from Lance Girling-Butcher, who used to be the editor of the Daily News, and his real concern around community newspapers being shut down during level 4, because they said, for many of our older people, that's their lifeline in terms of the connection and for the government messaging around COVID-19 and what needs to happen. It's really important. And for all of us, I'm sure the people listening, probably no one subscribes to the paper copy of their local newspaper. But actually, for some people, it still is a lifeline. And also with the banks, like you say, Ryan, I've got an elderly friend who I've known for years, and he's in a rest home here, and they went into lockdown 2 weeks before we did. So I haven't seen him 2 weeks before the lockdown began. And it's another 2 weeks, they're still assessing. But I'd go on every week, and I'd deal with his banking, I'd deal with him paying the bills online he had to pay, those sort of things, and I can't do them. And I know the staff have been really good and supportive, but it's just those simple things that we take for granted. We've got to realise that not everyone has access. And I think people think it's, I don't know in your field, but lots of people think everyone has access, and it's quite, but even rural communities who have the slower internet access, I know.
That was just the point I was going to bring up as well. Is it's not just some of the connections around, even in Taranaki, but obviously around the country as well, they're pretty dodgy. I've spoken to a couple of people this week who are based in farms in South Taranaki, and we try to jump on a Zoom chat, and it just doesn't work. And so these people are having to try and adapt to the new digital normal. But they don't really have the technology to do it as what we do here. And I guess that's another just thing that we just need to kind of remind ourselves that, if you are based in central New Plymouth or near a central centre around the country, that you're actually pretty fortunate, really.
Well, the other thing, Jordan, is I was talking to a school around the coast again, around coastal Taranaki, and they were talking about, one, the internet access, and two, I think one family had 3 children at home, all of school age, and they have one computer between the whole, they had one computer in the whole household. So suddenly the schools now are expecting this online learning or trying to, which I think is really exciting as well, but realizing for some families, one, the internet access, and two, the access to a device to actually do the work. So they have to break up their days into small chunks for each of the children have a go on the computer. So we're all living in different spaces. And I think, it would be unfortunate if people assume that everyone has had access to devices left, right, and the internet.
Yeah. It's very true, really true. And like, if you think about some businesses or community organisations, Glenn, that or even Ryan as well, that has actually adapted well and have made changes that have actually worked well for them, for example.
Yeah, do you want to go?
In terms of the immediate reaction, in terms of supporting families, I know I had the privilege of helping out Tūtama Wahine o Taranaki, which is a Māori organisation here, and I helped them for a day delivering food parcels, and they did it on themselves. They thought, we've got all these families we work with. We know that this was in the first, towards the first end of the first week of lockdown, and so they just did organise this mass. And so we just were driving the streets of New Plymouth and all around Taranaki, delivering food parcels to families. They weren't expecting it, and they were really grateful for what they received. So I was really impressed with some of the social services, even the police getting involved, and they provided a heap of hygiene packs, which sounds very sterile, but it's in terms of hand sanitizers and gloves and all sorts of hygiene products that would help families who might not have access to those things, and they're in short supply as well. And I know, like, Venture Taranaki has been obviously doing some great stuff around, around innovation and what did they call it? Something that you were on there, I think, Ryan, weren't you talking about flattening the curve? Was that one of the things? Sorry, Jordan, you were on there at some stage.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. So they've got a little webinar series that they've kicked off. It's really good. I've actually watched a couple. Obviously, I was fortunate enough to host one of them on Tuesday. It has been really interesting. And the Venture Taranaki are putting out some fantastic support for businesses. Obviously, there's those webinars that you can join up to. Plus, there are some pretty good COVID-19 packages as well that as part of the regional fund as well. So that's actually really good. And so there is support available really at the end of the day, isn't there?
And I guess the other thing for me has been just seeing the just how community, like not even organisations, but just how the community has been innovative and creative. And I look at Anzac Day, and stand at dawn and seeing, going out to our letterbox and seeing people out and working the streets of my community, seeing the fences and the letterboxes, decorated for Anzac Day, and the teddy bears and the Easter eggs. And I just think there's been, again, these, in a crisis, it causes us to innovate and be creative. And it's not just the business or the community organisation or the government or council that create these opportunities. It's actually individuals going, oh my gosh, I'm part of this community. What can I do? And that's been really encouraging to see, because I think for a long time we've sort of been getting away from, we just expect the government, expect the council, expect some school or business to organise our lives. But to see people actually innovating individually, but on a mass scale, has been really excited me.
Yeah, that's actually true. And so an example of that as well, I got a call from a business last week before Anzac Day, Simply Blooming. I don't know if you saw them on Facebook, but they kind of went a little mini viral there, where they started encouraging people to create reefs, and they had little how-to videos of how to do it. And then people just started going gangbusters and actually making these reefs and hanging them up around the place. And so then we had, so they gave me a call, and I offered a bit of support to kind of keep it going for them. And then we ended up getting a call also from Dalglish Diamond Jewelers as well. And they ended up making this really nice wreath out of gemstones. It was beautiful. And so they then jumped on board as well, and so we created this mini event and got people posting about how they're going to stand at dawn with their family, and like you say, just promote community and togetherness, and I guess just promote that everyone is adapting and they're actually doing a great job. So it was even really cool to be able to see two little businesses kind of come together like that to even make a little bit of an impact.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
I think what you were just saying there too, Jordan and Glenn, I think this is a challenge for us moving into the future too, is how do we retain this feeling of community? How do we retain these neighbourhoods where everyone's dropping off cups of sugar and, oh, I haven't got this, and shooting down. It's been great where I live. People drop things in letterboxes. We've been sharing books with kids on the street and toys that people aren't using. And it's been unlike anything I've ever had. It maybe harks back to the earlier days of New Zealand, where neighbours and knowing your neighbours was a really important part of your social life. And I think we got away from that in modern times, and it's kind of returned a bit. And I'm really hopeful that people actually continue on with what we've done over this lockdown time, because those things are really positive, and they're helping out of your neighbour and offering support where you can. So I'm excited that hopefully continues into the future.
Well, it's a
you'd hope so. Yeah, definitely. And I think community-wise and also business community-wise as well, at the moment there is obviously a big drive on social media and everything like that around supporting local, and there's a lot of new Facebook groups that are popping up where they're actively asking people to promote about what their local business is and how they can support others and stuff like that. So hopefully that type of thing continues as well, that everyone can see that we're kind of in the same boat. And everyone's got things that can support others and support the community, and they've got products that are that people need and people want. And I think it's just going to be great that hopefully we can keep kind of supporting each other. And it's even doing small things like we're doing here, like just getting different business people and people from the community just to chat and just to share different perspectives. So hopefully all this, like you say, hopefully it does kind of reignite and kind of hit the reset button on the way that we do treat community. I don't know about you guys, but even when you go for a walk or a bike around the streets at the moment, I get so many more hellos and waves and smiles just from random people that you've never seen before. I don't know if it's just the area that I'm in, but yeah, I don't know.
I totally agree. It happens to me as well. But I find it really interesting because you're avoiding people like never before. So you're sort of going for the big, saying hello to them like never before. It's such a sort of conundrum. It's this weird thing. But the thing and again with business, just looking around since level 3 started on Tuesday, wasn't it? That just people innovating and going, you can put your head in the sand and go, oh, this is screwed, and I've, my business is in dire straits. But seeing, businesses who have been able to open, really innovating and finding ways, and it being different, but but exciting to see them actually adapting. Because I think the worst thing I'm guessing in business, and you'd know more than I would, but is just to stay rigid to what you've always done. But again, there's the opportunity that comes with the crisis that people seem to be embracing has really warmed my heart.
Yeah, exactly. Look, even using, my wife owns a hair salon in town. They don't have a full online store set up for their products, because obviously all their products are usually just on the counter at the salon, and their main part of their business is providing a hair service. So entering into level 3, it seemed a bit out of reach to create a whole e-commerce website, especially for what potentially could only be a couple of weeks. So instead, they opted for literally just taking orders over Messenger. And then me and the wife, we jump in the car each afternoon and we just go for a bit of a drive and drop them into people's letterboxes. And it's actually been, a really cool little activity. And it's, like I say, it's not perfect. But it's getting a bit of money in the door for the salon. And at the same time, it kind of gets you out in the community as well, and kind of gets some of the products that people are kind of needing. Especially with the salon, there's a lot of people that are desperate for some hair care products at the moment. So even just making small little changes like that and just adapting and seeing what you can do just to keep the business going and keep a bit of cash flow coming in, even in these different times.
And I think it's also seeing how businesses have really connected with their community. And, you know, Ryan, you were saying this is sort of feels like, you know, something from the old days, but I've picked up also from community organizations, businesses that have, you know, thrown either money or their product to community organizations, obviously then pass on to those who needed it. So I think that's been really encouraging as well, to see businesses realizing that they're not just in their own silo, but they're part of a bigger community, and they've risked challenge, and I think that's been a really positive thing as well.
Yeah, definitely. And look, even if we have a think like about this whole conversation in general, you know, we've been talking now for 27 minutes, and it has been really interesting. And even this type of chat here, and this is why I love doing these broadcasts now, is it's even now has kind of opened my eyes even to think about some other people around the community that are obviously still doing it tough. Like obviously today we've already spoken around thinking about like the elderly community, the people the farming communities with the poor internet and like you say, some of the families that are still struggling that usually would get some sort of package from their school or anything like that to help with food and the food bill and things like that are now really struggling. And I guess that's one of the things that I am going to take away even from this half an hour is just thinking about the different scenarios that people are in right now, and that even though we're at level 3, and even though KFC is open and everyone's really happy and things are starting to feel a bit more right, there is still some people that are facing a bit of anxious times and still facing some challenges. And hopefully businesses are going to continue the support that they've been showing each other over that past 5 weeks. So even that's been something really good to even get out of this chat here. So yeah, Glenn, thanks for kind of opening up our eyes to some of those community just to what's going on in the community.
No, it's a pleasure. And I guess that level, I just really want to, because level 3 makes me quite nervous, and I don't want us to go back to level 4 ever. And so I guess my thing at the end of it is just please keep your distance, please enjoy your coffee or your KFC, but don't burst your bubbles. We can't afford to go back. We've got to keep going forward.
Yeah.
That's very true. And here's to let's hope that what day was it? May 11 that the government do announce that they can start moving down into level 2, which is obviously going to ease it up for a few more people. It'll be interesting what they do with schools. I don't know, if they're going to start allowing kids to slowly enter back into the school system again, or so it is going to be an interesting few weeks, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Great.
But yeah, thank you so much, guys, for coming out. Usually we like to try keep these chats to about half an hour, but I think, like I say, we've actually covered off quite a bit, and I've actually learned quite a bit as well. So thank you so much for both kind of coming on and having a chat. Glenn, what's obviously you're still in a bit of lockdown now, but obviously you're still just working from home now.
Yeah, we live in a tiny home, so it's sort of been a challenge. The two of us, and my partner's a school teacher and is trying to do teaching online while I'm trying to do online meetings and that kind of thing. So it hasn't been easy, but hey, we're still smiling and we still like each other.
That's a good start.
I'm pretty much sitting to level four restrictions at the moment, and that's okay.
Yeah,
awesome. That sounds good. And again, thanks so much for joining us, Glenn. Like I said, it was a really cool to get a different perspective on things from your perspective. Because like we said at the start of the call, you know, you've been working in and have been kind of dedicating your life to community initiatives for so long now. That's why me and Ryan, when we were chatting yesterday, it was like we kind of had to have you on just to get that different perspective and just to kind of hear how some of those organizations are still coping and how those communities are still coping. So it's it's been really interesting.
Can I just do one really quick plug? Sorry, we've gone over the 30 minutes, but we have actually been doing a project called a quilting project of all things called Taranaki Apart Together. So if you go on Facebook, look up Taranaki Apart Together, and your challenge is to make us an isolation quilt. So it's all square that you can reflect on what Taranaki means to you and what your community means to you. And once we get out of all of this, we're going to put them all together into this make a huge quilt and see what Taranaki means to the people of this community. So look up Taranaki Apart Together, be creative and make a square for the quilt.
I'll find the page and we will we'll link it and to the bottom of this video as well. So if anyone does watch the replay, check out the description below, so we'll have it all linked there ready to go. But that sounds great. It sounds like really something fun to kind of support, and that's the type of stuff, you know, we're going back full circle. That's the type of stuff that we need to be doing and need to be continuing with as well. So that's awesome.
And I'm untalented, can't sew, and I'm doing it, so does anyone can.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Glenn. Ryan, thanks for joining us again, mate. It's been interesting to hear everyone's perspectives. And I hope, I hope everyone has another good week in mini lockdown. Like you say, Glenn, if we can keep treating it like a lockdown, that'd be great, so we can get into level 2 ASAP.
Amen.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys, and thank you so much for joining us, everyone. If I see we've had quite a few viewers kind of popping in and out over the past half an hour, so thank you so much for sticking out, and hopefully you were able to get some interesting perspectives out of the current level 3. And we're going to be chatting again. We've got some really interesting people in the lineup, Ryan. We're going to be chatting with a national broadcaster over the next week. He's an old friend of both of ours, and so we'll be able to have a good yarn about some of the old times. But also, he will also have a really good perspective on the media side of things around the lockdown as well. So we'll have more details on that once we kind of firm it up. But again, guys, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks very much.
Awesome.